Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
Well, you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
It's not human intelligence!
Nation. Waldorf Nation. It's Friday, everybody. Welcome to the show. We got a Good Friday show for you all. It's gonna be fun times. First, of course, we are going to talk about how right-wingers are inciting violence against hospitals. That's horrific. I'm going to show you examples of Tim Pool and his hypocrisy over that issue. We have a lot of money in politics stories, including Trump, of course, stealing donor money and using it in interesting ways. Let's just say that. We'll talk about that. We have, Look, if you're a Republican donor at this point, you're a moron. Because they're taking your money and they're using it for hilariously bad things. And sometimes, like, terrible things. But not to, fund Republican candidates. Which, again, ostensibly is why you would send money to these people. But anyway, and by the way, I'm not talking about the big donors. I don't really care about them. I don't give a damn about big donors. I do care about average people who continue to allow themselves to get screwed over by these terrible people. So we've got that. We also have a story about money in politics. Yeah, I know there's a theme going on here today. A lot of money in politics stories. Turns out, hey, Republicans, they love money in politics. Oh, I know, big shocker, right? But here's the newest declaration. They blocked the Disclose Act. So I've got some details, details on that. So we're going to talk about that later on in the show. And then we'll get to some fun. Alex Jones cries. Fun times. I love that. And then we are also, if we got time, I just want to go over just like a couple of videos from the debate that Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian had with Dennis Prager. That's fun. I got hot deals on Instahard. Lots and lots of Instahard, let me tell you what.
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
That you do. That you do. All right. So first, why don't we go into the Tim Pool segment here and talk about, right-wing violence. Recently, the far right has gone from labeling teachers as groomers to threatening doctors and hospitals that happen to offer gender-affirming care for transgender youth. These same youth that are incredibly at risk. And so these hospitals, these medical facilities will offer healthcare that reduces suicidal ideation among this very vulnerable community that has come under, especially in the United States, intense legislative assault by right-wing culture warriors. In fact, recently, several children's hospitals who offer this care, most notably Boston Children's, have been the target of a far-right harassment campaign for months. Led by, of course, anti-trans influencers, millions of collective followers, people like Matt Walsh, Shia Rychik of Libs of TikTok, many others who have spread just massive, disgusting disinformation about the hospital's gender-affirming treatment for minors. Now, the most recent target has been the Vanderbilt Medical Center in Tennessee. They ended up having to shut down their webpage for its transgender care center because Matt Walsh claimed that they would drug, chemically castrate, and mutilate minors. Now, of course, if that were true, well, that would be horrible. And of course, we would be against that, right? Now, it's a good thing that it's not true, because when he says, oh, they're drugging and they're chemically castrating children, that's an incredibly gross mischaracterization of what is, in reality, standard hormone therapy. By the way, hormone therapy has been used for a very long time in non-transgender people, or what we call cisgendered people. Now, a couple of examples of hormones, right, that are used by cisgendered people are birth controls. All right, birth control pills, those are hormonal. They're obviously taken to prevent pregnancy, but not just prevent pregnancy, by the way. There's other reasons that the women would take hormonal birth control pills. Sometimes it clears up acne. Sometimes it helps with things like endometriosis and other conditions. And so, by the way, hormones. Okay? And by the way, hormones will come with risks. Of course, there are risks of birth control pills, but there are also risks for another example, and that is testosterone. That is a hormone, which is, by the way, prescribed for many older men who, feel like they need to get a bit of their edge back. a little bit of their energy, a little bit of their libido. I mean, and you know, of course, see all these commercials. Men, do you have low T? Well, we've got some tea for you. Testosterone. Here's some hormones. Okay, so again, cisgender people taking hormones. There's nothing nefarious about hormone treatments. Now, of course, I'm sure detractors will point out, yeah, but, okay, but we're talking about this when it comes to children, right? Now, here's the thing. So what Matt Walsh talks about is prepubescent children. Nobody's giving hormones to prepubescent children. Now, are there situations where teenagers who identify as transgender are given hormones and specifically puberty blockers? Yes, that is the case. That is part of gender affirming care. So now that's the thing. Puberty blockers have also been used for cisgendered people for decades that face certain medical issues. And there was actually very little controversy when these, hormones and medications were used for cisgendered people. And so that's really the big issue here. Okay. Look, when it comes to hormones, they can be reversed. Hormone treatments can be reversed. Puberty blockers can be stopped. And then normal people can, resume. And again, those puberty blockers are only recommended for use up till, I think, the age of 16, I believe. And so they're only suggested to be used for just a couple of years to give people the chance to figure out if they're going to continue transition or not. Okay, so there you go. Now, that said, as far as body modification surgeries that are cosmetic, or even genital reconstruction surgeries, those are not given to minors. And by the way, nobody supports that. In fact, according to guidelines for the medical care of transgender patients developed by the Endocrine Society and the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, genital reassignment surgery is reserved and should continue to be reserved for those who are 18 or older. Okay? So, according to C.P. Hoffman, Senior Policy Counsel for the National Center for Transgender Equality, he told PolitiFact that, quote, even when a minor has parental support for their transition-related surgeries are not typically performed prior to the age of 18. So, yeah. And by the way, they acknowledge that while there are some reports of transgender teens between the ages of 16 and 18 receiving transition-related surgical care, these cases are exceedingly rare and based on the specific medical needs of the teen. So there you go. We acknowledge that. So that said, no prepubescent children are being surgically altered. If somebody's telling you that, they're repeating lies. Lies that have been spread by bad faith actors who want you to hate transgender people specifically. So now, sadly, of course, there's a lot of people, even I would say a lot of good intentioned people who are unaware of all the nuances of what's going on with the transgender community and the things that they face that have fallen for these lies. And as a result, there are subsets of people that have sent death threats, bomb threats to doctors and staff at these hospitals. Those are not good intentioned people. Those are bad intentioned people. Which, of course, brings me to Tim Pool, where he talked a little bit about some of these threats that, again, directed by people like Matt Walsh and Libs of TikTok. He's going to, in this next clip, give them cover.
Is that their parents allegedly consent to it. Some online critics claimed that Walsh's accusations were going to get people hurt or even killed. Okay, that's absurd. Calling out something in the media, you can't be responsible for the violence that ensues from it.
Hey, man, look, you can't blame someone for calling something out in the media for any violence that ensues. That's just not fair. Okay, Tim, if that's your position, that's totally fine. You can have that position. But is it your position?
Even to that regard, with Joe Biden calling Republicans extremists, and then a couple of weeks later someone coming out and running over a kid, I don't blame Joe Biden for having an opinion. A teenager in North Dakota was leaving a street dance party. He noticed someone was following him. A 41-year-old man named Shannon Brandt rammed him with his vehicle, running him over and killing him. He admitted to police the reason he did it was because the teenager was part of a Republican extremist group. Sound familiar? Sound familiar at all? Why, it was only a couple of weeks ago that Joe Biden came out and said Maggie extremists are a threat to our democracy. And so here we are, out, and says American vets are under assault by Trump-led extremism. Don't be surprised when his stochastic terrorism, as they call it, results in a dead kid. A teenager who supports you was murdered. There should be bills being introduced called the Kaler-Ellingson Act. There should be inquiries and there should be, Joe Biden should be impeached for this. There should be articles of impeachment introduced right now because the words of Joe Biden himself has resulted in this.
Well, wait. I thought you can't blame someone for calling something out that has happened in the media for any violence that ensues. Because it's not fair. Tim Pool. That's hypocrisy right there. So again, let me get this straight. Matt Walsh and others who claim that children are being drugged, mutilated by doctors en masse at these hospitals, right? Even though it's not true, should not be blamed, right, for the flood of bomb and death threats that have been sent toward those doctors and hospitals because of their reporting. But Joe Biden should be impeached because he once said MAGA Republicans are dangerous. Okay. And by the way, because some, drunken moron did something absolutely horrible and unconscionable, and by the way, should be punished to the full extent of the law for doing so because he murdered an innocent teen. That's a horrific story. That doesn't mean that Joe Biden didn't say something that was true. He did. There are MAGA Republicans that are a danger to our democracy. Again, we're talking about the people who stormed the Capitol building. We're talking about the people who tried to install fake electors. These are the people that also beat up police officers and chanted about how they wanted to murder the vice president at the time. And by the way, I've talked about how Biden was too soft. Biden didn't say all Republicans. No, he loves conservative Republicans. He thinks the Republican Party is great. He just thinks that the party has lost its way. It has been taken over by a small minority of extremists, but in reality, he's wrong. Most of the party is the extremists now. You have the majority of Republican voters that believe that Biden stole the election. You have 40% of Republicans that think that violence against the government is justified. You have 61% of Republicans that wanted the U.S. to be declared a Christian nation, even though the majority of that, 57%, say that or admit that they know it would be unconstitutional to do that, but they want it anyway. They said, we don't care about the Constitution. Sorry. We don't care. We want our Christian mullahs. That's it. That is deeply un-American. That is against the Constitution. That is against the First Amendment, to which they claim to be in such favor of. Oh, no, what do you mean? I believe in the First Amendment. Which part? No, the only part of the First Amendment that you like is, for one, something that you completely misunderstand. The real free speech that you're always talking about is, I just want to say racist things and not get in trouble for it on social media. That's it. I just want to type the N-word all day onto social media sites and not get kicked off. That has nothing to do with free speech. Again, they don't care. They want to establish Christianity as the dominant religion of this country. And so, yes, they have consistently attacked our form of government for decades. And at this point in time, right-wing extremist groups have done more terror attacks on American soil than any other group. It's not even close. It's not even close. So the absolute hypocrisy here, right? For example, Tim Pool. saying, oh no, we should hold Biden accountable for actually saying something true, but you can't hold Matt Walsh accountable for putting out nonsense conspiracy theories and lies that are getting people threatened. No, it's not even close. No surprise that Tim Pool is a complete and utter hypocrite. But hey, that's what they have. That's what they have on the right wing. And I know, Tim Pool is not a right winger. Yeah, he is. You only have to look at the things that he says, the things that he believes in, or professes to believe in, to see exactly what he really is. Okay. Go to Money in Politics. Tim Pool is not a right winger, and he also doesn't wear a beanie. Yes. Ravaging Wolverine. That beanie, that's actually just part of his head. That's his hair. It's true. Because he is totally not bald. Just own it. I'm bald. I don't care. I'm bald. You would look better if you shave your head. Trust me. Just get it over with, man. You'll feel better. Okay, anyway. Former President Donald Trump's Save America Leadership PAC continues to raise huge amounts of money, ostensibly to support GOP midterm candidates. You're not going to be surprised, however, that little of that actually seems to be going to that purpose, but instead to some very interesting things. And by interesting, I mean things that are completely unrelated to political spending, things that they actually should not be spending money on. So now, on Tuesdays, super PACs and party committees had to disclose their August finance information, which includes expenditures, right? So now, here's some of the stuff that they had found. According to Washington Post reporter Isaac Stanley Becker, Trump's PAC had actually reported spending about $18,000 on strategy consulting on one particular place. This is Herve Pierre, registered to a Fifth Avenue address in New York City. That was one of the things that had stood out. $18,000 for strategic consulting. Interesting. Now, look, that's in addition to a $60,000 payment paid in 4 installments between April 7th and June 24th to that same person for strategy consulting. Interesting. So now, who's Herve Pierre? Well, you're going to find out that it's not a political strategist, but a fashion designer. Oops. So, yeah, you have $78,000 going to a fashion designer for strategic consulting. What in the world? How is that strategic consulting? Okay. I mean, at this point, what's to prevent them from going to a hairstylist, and paying them with PAC money and then saying, oh, don't worry, they were just consulting me. We're having a strategy consulting session while I was also getting my hair done. Hey, I went to a bar and, I bought like, a couple grand worth of drinks, for me and my buddies. But we were having a strategy consulting session with the bartender. That's what it was. Strategic consulting, everybody. Yeah, that bartender has some really, really good political strategies. Let me tell you what. No, this is ridiculous. The Post noted that the Federal Election Commission does not allow candidate committees, which are formed to raise money for a specific candidate, to spend money on personal items, including clothing. But honestly, who's going to support that? Enforce that. I mean, the FEC is currently a mess. We're not winning with the FEC, okay? Half of them are Republicans that want absolutely no limits to when it comes to bribing politicians or what they spend money on. They don't care. They don't want any limits on money in politics at all. And by the way, this isn't to let Democrats off the hook as well. Democrats, corporate Democrats specifically, they also like money in politics. Of course. But see, here's the thing, though. When it comes to Trump's PAC, it's even more brazen because they're out there admitting it. In fact, look, Pierre had addressed these previous payments in a statement to Women's Wear Daily back in August, saying, quote, as with every other first lady, there's an after the White House life, which involves many other aspects than fashion. I'm lucky to have worked in prestigious houses, to have designed costumes for ballets, and more recently to work in home decor. There are many upcoming projects in this after White House stage. Okay, well, look, that's great and all, but honestly, why are Donald Trump's donors paying for that? If you want, you know, Mr. Pierre's services, let's just say that, whatever, okay, pay for it yourself. Why are you getting Donald Trump's donors to pay for it? MAGA guys, if you're watching, and I know you are you okay with this? Did you send your hard-earned money to Donald Trump, to this PAC, in order to help pro-Trump candidates win so you can make America great again, right? Or did you send that money to have Donald Trump and his wife live fat off your cash while you're struggling? Or to use it to pay their legal bills before that they had racked up before they even got into office? Look, Politico notes that Trump's PAC had spent in August about $3.8 million on Trump's legal fees. Please tell me, I want to know. I'm asking you, either you're pissed off because he's screwing you over, or you know about it and you're fine with it. Oh yes, please take advantage of me, Daddy Trump. Go ahead and use my Social Security retirement money to pay for Melania's dresses. Are you a sucker or are you not a sucker? What are you? By the way, judging from the amount that this PAC has taken in, at the end of August, they had about $100 million cash on hand. I would say that there's a lot of suckers out there. Look, do you not understand? Honestly, I know, oh, it's fake news. That's all it is. It's fake news. It's fake news. Right. There is one contribution, though, that this PAC has made, and that's $150,000 to a group that worked to defeat Representative Liz Cheney in her GOP primary. Okay, so look, I'm being fair. That's a fact. Okay. Now, I'm going to say that it's probably because Liz Cheney got under his skin and dared to call out some of the stuff that he had done. I think that affected him, you know, hurt his little ego. But when it comes to all the other Republican candidates, there's a slate of Republicans that could probably use that money. Dr. Oz, I did a story on him yesterday. Oh, he's struggling, man. He is struggling, begging supporters for cash. Boy, he could use a little bit of a bailout, but it's not going to happen. When it comes to the Trump's PAC, it looks at the other Republicans, screw them. No. This money is mine. I'm going to find a way to try to get that money to be spent on me or my businesses, so it's going to go in my pocket. I don't care about the law. I don't care about any of that. No. Look, do you get it? Do you get it, MAGA? Maybe you don't. Maybe, as long as Trump hates who you hate, maybe you'll just keep letting him take advantage of you. And you know what that makes you?
Beta male.
All right. Moving on, let's go to the next story here. Florida Florida taxpayers have once again, unwittingly or perhaps unwillingly, lined the pockets of a huge Republican donor so that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis could score some cheap political points. Last week, 48 Venezuelan asylum seekers were flown out to Martha's Vineyard with the expectation that they were going to get some assistance in applying for a way to stay in the United States. And by the way, that's how they were enticed to get on that plane. There were some, there's a brochure that had some information on there that turned out not to be true. And of course, there's also reports that they were told, it's from the migrants themselves, there was going to be, job training, cash assistance, and things like that waiting for them if they had boarded that plane. Of course, that was a lie. Instead, their unexpected arrival at Martha's Vineyard had caused some chaos in that community as they had to react. And I think they did a great job, by the way, reacting to it, to, make sure that they built a support network to give these people food and shelter and assistance. And then, of course, before they had ultimately went to a temporary facility. All of that happened to have come at a cost of about $12,000 per migrant. It's a really expensive flight. In fact, it totaled about $615,000, of which went right into the pockets of a Florida GOP donor. As the Daily Beast explains, Vertol Systems Incorporated, which was founded in Oregon but has ties to the Florida Panhandle, was the company that was hired for this gig. They had actually reaped more than $12,000 per migrant to transport the group from San Antonio, Texas to Massachusetts with stopovers in Florida and South Carolina. The president of Vertol, James Montgomery, has contributed exclusively to GOP causes, both individually and through his company in Florida. Campaign finance records show that includes donations to the Florida legislature's appropriations chief, his father, and the state's Republican Party. Oh, would you look at that? So now, one of the donations actually included about $2,700, or the maximum limit, to Matt Gaetz back in 2016. Another was $5,000 to a $5,000 donation to a super PAC named North Florida Neighbors in 2017, which was organized to also support Matt Gaetz. Fun. Apparently, this guy loves Matt Gaetz as much as Matt Gaetz loves paying people for sex. Allegedly, of course. Don't know that for sure, but allegedly. We'll be clear, right? Federal records show that the donations were also made to the PAC by Vertol itself, with the company's name on $7,500 worth of donations between 2016 and 2017. Now, these donations, of course, might explain why Florida, again, remember, this was $615,000 for flying out 48 migrants. Turns out they ran some costs on this. Florida paid more than double the most expensive market price for a charter service to move those migrants. That seems rather fishy, doesn't it? A little strange, don't you think? No, it's not strange at all if you knew anything about politics. No, this is an example of a return on investment. You see, this company gave bribes to these politicians, and then these politicians ended up giving them a gigantic return on investment. For just a few $1,000s in donations, I gave you the totals, this company got over $500,000 from just one stunt. And by the way, there's more to come. Ron DeSantis has promised more. Florida has actually allocated about $12 million in funding for their migrant relocation program. A second payment has actually already been dished out to Vertol, according to records published on the website of Florida's chief financial officer, with Florida paying another $950,000 in taxpayer money related to the relocation program of authorized aliens just this week. Now, look, if you're somebody who gets mad because, the immigrants, they're coming over, they're taking our resources, they're taking our money. Wait, then what do you think about this? No, what's taking your money is the corruption. That's what's going on. Immigrants aren't here to steal your welfare. They don't get welfare under the law, okay? They don't get welfare. They don't get these assistance programs. If you're undocumented, you don't get any of that. And by the way, if you're an undocumented person and you're working in this country, which a lot of them are, they still end up paying taxes. But they never see anything back in benefits because they're not a citizen. And so, and by the way, they're also exploited by corporations who then work them for lower wages because, hey, look, I could pay you $2 an hour, or I could call ICE on them, and to come and get you and deport you back to the country that you came from. And oftentimes when you do have people that have escaped terrible economic conditions, but aren't essentially refugees or asylum seekers, but just wanted to come and get a better life, which, by the way, is not the majority of the people that have been crossing over the border. A lot of them have been. The majority of them have been asylum seekers and refugees from gang violence and from, other problems, other issues, right? They don't get anything back. Wouldn't it be better to, work to make them citizens so that they pay taxes, so that they can legally contribute, get jobs, and not get exploited by employers? Just saying. It'd be smarter, wouldn't it? But of course, smart doesn't matter when really your politics boils down to, I hate brown people. But anyway, the moral of this really is both the taxpayer and immigrants are being robbed by crooked politicians and the people who paid them legal bribes. People like Republican State Representative Jay Trumbull Jr., who happens to be the Appropriations Committee chair. He actually received a $1,000 donation from Vertol this year for his Florida Senate bid, according to state finance records. The representative's father, Jay Trumbull Sr., was appointed by DeSantis to be in the Florida Transportation Commission in 2020, but was not listed as a member of the commission's website on Wednesday. Prior to his appointment, he gave $2,500 to DeSantis's successful 2018 campaign. The Intercept reported that his company, Trumbull Water Services of Northwest Florida, gave another $10,000 to Friends of Ron DeSantis, a state-level PAC that backs the governor and describes itself as being committed to advancing the freedom agenda and keeping Florida free. Other political donations from Vertol in Florida included $500 in 2006 to failed GOP gubernatorial candidate Tom Gallagher, $2,500 to North Florida neighbors, and $10,000 to the Florida Republican Party. Montgomery did not return a request for comment at a number listed in his name. By the way, also interesting, the website for Vertol, which had been online prior to last week's migrant flight, is now offline. So they're offline and have hidden their contact information. Gee, I wonder why. You got something to hide there? Is there something fishy here? What's going on? Why you hiding, buddy? Why you hiding? Look, honestly, if you're really, looking to follow the real corruption in this country in order to shut it down, you don't need to go on anonymous, 8chan forums, waiting for Q drops, okay?
Dumps, big massive dumps.
You don't have to do that. No, all you have to do is just follow the money. That's it. Follow the political donations, and you'll see the corruption laid out before your eyes, because it's everywhere. And at this point, they're barely even bothering to hide it. Speaking of bothering to hide it, moving on. all the talk about how the Republican Party wants to drain the swamp and root out the corruption in our government, which I actually agree with. I think we should. But apparently they don't seem to actually want to do that, or even make the appearance of trying to do that. On Thursday, Senate Republicans had filibustered the DISCLOSE Act. Now, the DISCLOSE Act basically is to try to, expose incredibly wealthy donors. By the way, not just on the Republican side, but on the Democratic side as well. All wealthy donors who want to spend unlimited amounts of dark money that you can't tell where it comes from or where it's going, to ensure that the U.S. remains essentially under corporate rule with no transparency. Among other things, the DISCLOSE Act would require organizations spending money in elections, including super PACs and 501c4 dark money groups, to promptly disclose donors who give $10,000 or more during an election cycle. So we're talking about big donors, not somebody giving $100 or $200 or even $1,000, right? No, we're talking about incredibly wealthy donors. You're the top 1%, the top 5%. Corporations, CEOs, executives, the ones who are buying up politicians. Now, in addition to election disclosure requirements, the bill also required that groups spend money on ads supporting or opposing judicial nominees to disclose their donors as well. So, look, all this is about is just transparency. We want to know who's buying our politicians so that we know, so we can follow the money and see like, oh, okay, AT&T gave, $10,000 to said candidate, super PAC, right, to run ads on their behalf. Oh, and look, that same politician just happened to support a merger for AT&T or a tax break for telecommunications companies. That's all it would do. So we wouldn't actually do anything about the corruption, but at least we would know there's corruption there. At least we could see it. But Republicans, they decided, no, we don't even want you to see it at all. At all. Now, one of the authors of this legislation is Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. He said in a Wednesday floor speech, the bill's goal was to prevent corporations and billionaires from using dark money loopholes to, quote, spew bile and slime into the nation's political system. Bile and slime. I like that saying because, look, it is pretty slimy. But these politicians, again, they do live in the swamp. They roll in that slime every day. They love it when billionaires give their campaigns millions of dollars. They love it, and they serve their corporate masters. Well, they serve them very, very well. 49 of the GOP colleagues in attendance on that day voted to prevent debate on legislation because, of course, it was put forward by Democrats. Today, Senate Republicans stood in lockstep with their mega donors and secretive special interests to protect the most corrupting force in American politics, dark money, said Whitehouse. The American people are fed up with dark money influence and campaigns that rig their government against them and stymie their priorities. And once again, Senate Republicans sided with special interests and dark money. I'm sorry, this is Senator Patty Murray saying this. Once again, Senate Republicans sided with special interests and dark money and against honest and transparent political debate. Instead of voting for the DISCLOSE Act and cracking down on the dark money in our democracy, Republicans blocked it. Shameful. So now, here's the thing about the DISCLOSE Act. It's not even that strong. I keep mentioning that. What we really need to do is to end the donations. All of it. All of it. Yes, yes, it is important to find out who's funding it. Sure. And what's interesting is, again, there are people out there that do not want you to know who is funding these politicians. Well, why not? Well, it turns out there's a reason. Maybe these companies and these executives are too embarrassed to be publicly seen supporting people that are perhaps insurrectionists or, racists, misogynists, science deniers, transphobes. Look, remember, you had a lot of big businesses that were publicly saying how appalled they were at what happened on January 6th, right? The idea that somebody could sit there or party could sit there and lie consistently about voter fraud, mass voter fraud that didn't actually happen in order to try to take power. And look, those same companies who were so aghast, they decided to go back immediately to funding the very people in Congress who enabled that to happen, who voted against to certify the election. So, or let's not forget the better example, rainbow capitalism, right? Or rainbow capitalism. Well, let's not forget about the best example here. And that is, of course, people saying, we stand with the LGBTQ community on Pride Month, right? Or the same companies that say we stand with women after the end of Roe. We support women. But those same companies will then turn around to support politicians, give them donations, money that are, these politicians are anti-gay and want to strip women of reproductive rights. That's what they're doing. And it's not, by the way, it's not because these companies are evil. Companies are amoral. They don't actually have personalities or political beliefs. No, what it is that they have to make as much money as possible for their shareholders. If they don't, then the board will vote out the CEO and replace him with someone who will try to make as much short-term profit as possible. That's the whole point of a corporation, is to make profit for their shareholders. That's it. And so that's why publicly they'll say, oh, no, we're with women, we're with LGBTQ plus people, because, by the way, that's where the country is socially, on those sides of those causes, right? But we'll privately say, no, we're going to give money to Republicans because guess what? Republicans, they cut our taxes and they deregulate us so we can make more money. That's it. So again, it's all about the money. And Republicans have demonstrated once again that they love the fact that the elites can buy them in secret. Yes, sir. Anything for you, sir. I am your bitch, your little lapdog. Please give me more campaign money, and I will do anything you say. If you want me to crush the working class, crush the working class. Oh, do you want me to kill childcare and paid leave? Absolutely, sir. I will do that 100%. I will grind working people into the dirt. But just give me that money. Just give me that money. To show you how much money is there. In 2020, the amount of dark money, again, this is unaccountable. We don't know where it's coming from. In the 2020 election, there was $1.2 billion. And that's just what we know of. That doesn't include all the other political spending. Just dark money. Now, that said, I've been kicking the crap out of Republicans this entire segment, right? But let's be honest, Democrats, corporate Democrats, share some of the blame as well. As the lever points out, holding a vote on the DISCLOSE Act without pushing to end the filibuster highlights the fundamental flaw with Democrats in Washington. Their rhetoric and warnings about dark money have always been spot on, but they have failed to take the actions necessary to stop the flow of secret cash distorting and corrupting American politics. Meanwhile, the party has become increasingly reliant on these same dark pools of cash to help elect more Democratic lawmakers. So understand, money in politics affects all parties, both parties. And yes, unfortunately, they end up being beholden to those donors. So this particular vote, it was already set up to fail. Going back to how weak this was in the first place and how it actually wouldn't end the corruption. But again, not enough. Two, Democratic senators, Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, said, I will not end the filibuster. So we're not going to get this passed. We're not going to get voting rights passed. We're not going to get labor rights passed. We're not going to get any of that stuff passed. We are just going to make it so that Republicans can block us and we don't have to actually do anything. And again, we can, of course, always count on Republicans not to vote for these things. And we can apparently also seem to count on Democratic leadership not wanting to get rid of the filibuster so they can actually pass these things. And so as a result, it's a win-win for them, specifically Democrats. They get to blame Republicans, and they also get to do political theater, and they also get to keep the monies. And it's also a win for Republicans, because Republicans also get to keep the monies. They don't have to say actually do anything to fight the corruption. All they have to do is just tell their followers, oh no, we're fighting the Washington swamp, and then try to ban transgender girls from sports. What happened to fighting corruption? It's not in the bathrooms. No, it's right in Congress. It's you guys. You're the corruption. No, again, this is a really good example here of how our political system is rigged against us. Follow the money. Speaking of money. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones has had a pretty terrible day in court on Thursday and is now crying poverty.
The good news is I don't have hardly any money, despite what they lie about in the press, okay? You know, if I have gross sales of $60 million a year, but then I have all this crew and all this advertising and all the legal fees, and I get paid a couple $1 million a year, and after I pay taxes, and after I pay for everything else, I am almost completely out of money. So it's a joke. I'm in bankruptcy. They've made up all this imaginary money I have when I'm in bankruptcy and I'm almost personally out of money. And so it doesn't matter if they do a $500 billion verdict, a $10 million verdict, a $50 million verdict. You can't get blood out of a stone.
Alex, why are you always lying? Alex. Now, look, here's the thing. So Alex Jones refused to do discovery, right? So now the point of discovery in this case is to show how much money InfoWars actually has. Now, he won't disclose that. So it's important for these proceedings because, again, at this point, they're trying to find out how much Alex Jones has to pay for damages for defaming these families. These are survivors of Sandy Hook, right? The families of kids who were murdered in the school. They're just trying to find out how much damage these families are owed for Alex Jones literally making money off these lies. Okay. Now, the reason, of course, that Jones did not do discovery is because he knows he's guilty and he's trying to hide his money. He's trying to shield his money. In reality, of course, Jones' net worth is estimated at some $270 million. And according to testimony from InfoWars producer Daria Karpova, their online store had generated over $165 million in revenue in just 3 years. There's a lot of money going on. There's a lot of money in InfoWars. Alex Jones has a lot of money. And yet, he cries poverty. Of course. Now, by the way, that $165 million, by the way, that's a lot of Instahard sold. But anyway, according to testimony from his ex-wife, Kelly Jones, she claimed that Jones had consistently flossed his wealth in private, buying a lot of the best things, eating some of the finest meals, buying cars, and even renting helicopters to then harass and stalk Kelly Jones, hiring private detectives. This guy's got money. And yet, again, cries and cries and cries. In fact, I'm going to give you more of his crying.
So this is basically as rigged as you can get. They also keep accusing me of making money off Sandy Hook. I don't make money off of any of the stories we cover. We have the show we do, and we have ads that air, just like any other show on radio or TV or cable. That's a fraud. I was barred from even defending myself, and so I had to just sit there while he lied and lied and lied. So Chris Matty already has his trial rigged. He already has it where I can't put on evidence, and then he screams at me for 5 minutes, and all I do is respond and say, you're an ambulance chaser, and you're a despicable person, right back to him while he pretends that I'm the devil. They weaponize the judiciary. The deep state is going after all their political enemies and opponents and trying with lawfare to bankrupt them or put them in prison. And this is extremely dangerous. We're supposed to be land of the free, home of the brave, and they're using these dead children not just to try to get rid of the Second Amendment, but now the First Amendment. Go ahead, ma'am.
Look, do they ever stop crying? I mean, honestly. Oh, it's rigged. It's the deep state. That's what it is. Everything is a conspiracy. And now the government, the deep states are coming after my. They're coming after my free speech. If there's a deep state, they don't care about Alex Jones. But here's the thing, though. No, they're not coming after your free speech. Defamation is illegal. It's never been legal. And so that's why there is. By the way, it's a civil trial. It's not even a criminal trial. So, I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. They wouldn't let me talk about my finances when I was in court. That's because you didn't give them the documents. Had you give them the actual documents that they had requested, the financial information about InfoWars, then yes, you could talk about that. But again, you didn't want to. No, what you wanted to do is to lie about it. Is to say, we didn't make any money off this. No, we didn't make any money at all. Okay. Look, we can't prove it, but we're poor. I'm living in a cardboard box. That's what's going on. All I want to do is just bring you the truth. I want to fight against the globalists and the deep state, and I can't do it from a box. Okay, so I had to have a studio. But when I go home, I live in a trailer. I live in a van down by the river, eating a steady diet of government cheese. That's what's going on here. I mean, again, this is ridiculous. He's lying. Homeboy made $800,000 in a single day. That's what he was talking about, Sandy Hook, when he was lying about this on his show. Now, Alex Jones is a complete and total liar. He's an absolute fraud, and he deserves to lose that fortune, the monies that he made off lying about those families. Telling these families that their children never existed, telling these families that they're crisis actors and that they weren't really sad because their families never existed at all. Their kids never died because the shooting didn't happen. And then coming out and saying, oh, you know what? I was wrong about that. But you made tons and tons of money off these lies, and you knew that they were lies. The only reason he backtracked is so that he didn't get in trouble. But, fortunately for those families, they're still able to sue. And thanks to Jones and his crack team of idiot lawyers, probably the worst lawyers in the world, aside from the ones that are representing Donald Trump right now. I mean, what lawyer sends an entire copy of your cell phone to the other side? I seriously, no, worst lawyers in the world. And so, yeah, this guy's going to continue to get drained of his money, judgments against him. Good. All right. Anyway. One more quick story here. This shouldn't take very long. On Thursday, TYT host Anna Kasparian debated Dennis Prager of PragerU. Now, look, I said before that I didn't think it was going to happen. I actually called him out in this video, and I said, he'll never do a debate with any actual leftist. But I was wrong. Turns out he did show up. Well, look at that. And by the way, he also did not rage quit, so credit to him. Now, that said, Prager had a lot of bad framing. So he seems to have a lot of ideas about the left. It just doesn't happen to be true. And so I want to give you an example here. This is where he talks about how a traditional woman would be treated in a classroom without any evidence.
If a girl got up in a high school or college class, let's say a professor or a teacher said, so women, I mean, to the extent that they can now say that, because you can't say boys and girls in many elementary schools, because we're told by your side that sex is not binary. But let's say they say, we'd like the women in this class, please stand up and tell us what your vision for your life is. If a girl got up in a college class and said, you know, to be honest, my greatest hope in life is for a good marriage and to make a family, she would be regarded as almost a freak.
Would she?
I mean,
what is that based on?
Yes,
what evidence do you have to back that up?
I live in the real world.
So do I.
There was, okay, and you believe that if a girl got up and said that, she would be regarded with the same respect as the girl who said, I'd like to be a physicist?
I believe that most normal people are too busy thinking about how they need to survive and are less concerned about the aspirations of individuals in their classroom. And so if you have data backing up that women who want to be homemakers are persecuted in this country, I'd love to see that data. And I wouldn't agree with that persecution.
I never said they're persecuted.
You seem to imply that they're being victimized by wanting to be homemakers, and I just don't buy it.
So I love Anna's response on that, because she's absolutely right. It's bad framing. He doesn't actually cite any sort of source. He doesn't say, well, I have an example here. He doesn't even have an anecdote. He just comes out and he says, well, obviously that person would be, treated like a freak because they wanted to be a homemaker. No, nobody cares. Nobody cares if you're a homemaker. Nobody cares if you want to do traditional gender roles in your own life. You see, again, the left, we do believe in freedom. We believe that if you want to have traditional gender roles in your relationship, do you. The only issue here that we have is trying to force those traditional gender roles onto everyone else. That's the issue that we have. Okay. And by the way, there's all sorts of other things that he said in there, like, oh, you can't actually say boys and girls in classrooms anymore. No, that's also, cite your sources. That's not true. You can say girls and boys, but then you also have to say, or to make sure that you respect someone's gender identity if they're not a girl or a boy, right? Or if they identify as the opposite gender that they were born. Okay. Again, I know it's a very, very difficult concept for people like Dennis Prager, but it's true. It's true. But again, there's all sorts of bad framing when it comes to what the left is actually arguing. That said, right, there's one more video here that I just, again, with the terrible framing here, and that's the idea that the left doesn't want to have conversations. And by the way, that's the whole reason that this debate had begun in the first place, that had been asked for, is because Dennis Prager believes that the left is trying to shut down any dissent, that doesn't want to have any conversations with the right wing. Again, I've had conversations with members of the right wing before. I've had perfectly pleasant conversations with the right wing, and I've had some contentious conversations with the right wing. Okay. The whole idea that the left wants to shut down dissent by disagreeing with you is absolutely ridiculous. But it goes to this victimhood framing. And this next video, again, this is my favorite part. It's where they shut down that framing.
Okay, if you're on the left as opposed to liberal, you don't believe in a free nation. I reject that, because you suppress dissent.
No, we
You're
don't.
on
You're
our show.
We're not suppressing dissent at all.
You're right. Well, I don't get a chance to speak much, but you're right, and I honor that, and you are exceptional.
No, they're not an exception. The left actually does like to have debate, and we actually don't want to dissent, crush any sort of dissent. That's projection. What Dennis Prager is doing is projecting. Yes, are there some people, by the way, in both political ideologies, that do want to, I guess, woke school, right? Yes, there is that situation. But when it comes to, progressives, no, we love to have debate because we believe in our ideas. We believe that our ideas are better than their ideas. And look, if there is a better idea on the other side, then yes, we'd like to hear it and even incorporate it. That's the whole point of having these open conversations. But where Prager comes from is, again, a lot of generalizations, a lot of terrible framing, and I think bad faith in a lot of these arguments. That's the issue that I've always had with Prager and these conversations. But nonetheless, I love that he decided to actually go on TYT and to have this debate. He should do Sam Cedar next. I really hope that he does Sam Cedars next. So that we can basically try to knock down the straw men of the left that Prager enjoys putting up on his own show. Okay. Anyway, that's it. There wasn't a lot to that because I didn't get a lot of time to prepare that. It was like a last minute thing, but still a lot of fun. So, let's go to, let's see. I did do the Alex Jones trial. I did a little bit of it afterwards. And thank you, Julie Swenson, for upgrading your membership to a supporter. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let's go over here on Twitch. Nothing new on Twitch, but thank you for the new follows. Appreciate that. All right. That's it. Hopefully you all have a fantastic weekend. Thank you all. I may or may not take off Monday. I'm not sure. But my birthday's on Tuesday. So yeah, maybe I'll take that day off. I don't know. That said, I'll let you guys know. Really, really appreciate you all. Thank you. Love you all. Oh, let's raid, by the way. Yeah, we'll do a surfs raid. All right, everybody. Thank you. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. See you all Monday. Maybe. Maybe.
Who's got a hammer?
There's insanity in the control room.
Ladies.
Tighten up my meat. I like my meat tight.
Obama. Big, massive dumps.
We're under attack.
Mike Pence.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
Fired! Fired!